you have heard this said. I guarantee it. Follow your what? Heart. Follow your heart. That message comes pretty loud and strong. I was watching a show with my wife the other day. Technically, she was watching a baking show. I was working on something and kind of watching. But I'm a big fan of eating and food. So I'm not opposed to baking shows. But this particular show, it was filmed, and one of the challenges was, it was June, so it was in celebration of Pride Month. I want you to make a rainbow-colored cake, and let's kind of celebrate this cultural moment together. And so that was the challenge. And then one of the participants on the show was gay, and then other folks were trying to figure out how to navigate this moment on TV. And I was kind of amazed, because then the host would go around to different participants and say, hey, what does this month mean to you? Hey, tell me what you think. Tell me why this is a special month for you. And you could tell people were struggling to regurgitate a cultural agenda. And one participant said it this way: I believe everyone should be able to love who they want to love. And that sounds loving. That sounds good. But I do not agree with that at all. I do not want some other man thinking it's okay for him to love my wife. I do not believe that you should love who you want to love. Last week, Cam told a story about a stepfather who was sexually abusing his stepdaughter. We do not believe everyone should love who they want to love. This thing that we've heard, this follow your heart. There's another phrase that just kind of sounds just like it. The heart wants what the heart wants. Some of you have said that, right? If you didn't say it out loud, you thought it. Man, the heart wants what the heart wants. You know where that came from? Woody Allen was being interviewed for Time magazine in 1992, and he was being questioned about his love affair with the adopted daughter of his longtime girlfriend. Let me just make sure you hear what I'm saying. Allen was sleeping with and later married who was practically his stepdaughter. And in response to the question, he said, the heart wants what the heart wants. Follow your heart. This is the message that we keep hearing. And ironically and unfortunately, this idea, or said another way, follow your heart, it's become a mantra and a belief system for our culture. Let me show you this. The way things used to work is this. There were facts, there were truths, there were things that you could observe and know. For instance, if you study how our world is created, there's a point where everyone at some point has to go. Doesn't matter if you're a Christian, non-Christian, at some point you go. There's got to be some intentional design behind this. Even the most aggressive, atheistic scientists at some point in their honest moments go, it would seem like there's an intelligent designer. So you look at the facts. Okay, this is what we do as Christians. And if you're not a Christian and you're here and you're just like, oh man, I walked in on a fun Sunday. Listen, if you've ever wanted to know what does the church believe about God and sexuality, this is an awesome moment. This is how we think. There are facts. There are truths in our world that we then build a faith system around. We build our belief in a creator God who made all things for a purpose, on purpose. So we have the facts, we have this faith belief system, and then that helps us understand our feelings. So inevitably we run into moments where my feelings go, I read scripture and I feel like that doesn't sound right, or that's too hard, or that doesn't match up with what I'm hearing. So what we do in those moments, if this is how you process things, is you go back to the facts. Well, who is God? And then you kind of return again to your faith system, and look what happens. Then your feelings begin to change and line up with what you believe. Now, today, things have been reordered. So today, we start with feelings. And what I feel becomes my belief system. If I feel like this is what makes me happy, or if I feel like this is what matters, if I feel, so what I believe, how I feel about certain things, then becomes the foundation for my faith, through which I then determine the facts. Through which I then go, okay, well, this must be true. And if something's off, what happens? We go back to my feelings. Now, I think this is super important because I think there's a consequence to a feelings-first culture. There are three things I want to point out. I think there are a lot of issues that come with this mindset, but I do want to point out three. Here's the first thing. Again, as we're talking about sex and sexuality, when you have a feelings-first approach to life and belief, sex becomes casual fun or sex becomes God itself. It becomes this thing that's like, no, we just do this between friends. It has no impact. It has no real significance. It's just fun that we get to engage in. Or it becomes God itself. It becomes the thing that you become enslaved to. It becomes the thing that you chase after more than anything else. That's a consequence of a feelings-first belief system. Here's the second consequence. If you think this way, feelings, faith, facts, you no longer have a solid foundation for what you believe. Listen, feelings are not intended to be a foundation. It's not a foundation for truth. So when you hear people say, hey, I have my truth, you have your truth, what are they actually saying? This is what I feel. You feel the way that you want to feel because their feelings have become the foundation for truth, but it doesn't work that way. Feelings, again, were not intended to be a foundation. Why? Because feelings change. What happens when you build your identity on how you feel? What happens when your feelings change? You experience an identity crisis. You experience confusion. You experience all kinds of things because, again, it wasn't designed. Feelings are not designed to be a foundation for us. Here's the last consequence I want to just point out. We have allowed an inappropriate weight to fall on the shoulders of this next generation. Our kids, my kids, they're experiencing some knowledge and even decisions that our kids, they're having to deal with that are entirely inappropriate for their development. I still help some of my kids figure out what to wear, and yet culturally we're saying we should let them choose their own gender. This is a consequence of a feelings-first mindset. Are we uncomfortable yet? Listen, this is why we're getting into the series, okay? This is why we are being influenced in the way that we think and in the way that we live, and we need to do the hard work of correcting some things in us. Listen, some of us in this room, we are thinking and approaching things in the wrong way, and we need to do some hard work of correcting those things. So here's my hope. My hope is that we will continue to be the kind of church that is good at getting into hard conversations. Listen, I know it's uncomfortable. I know some of these things are hard, but look, we have to get into this if we want to see a bigger picture of what God has in store here. And heads up, every one of us is going to be offended at some level in this message. I am offended by some of the things that show up in this message. I guarantee you will be offended at some of these things, but continue with curiosity, continue with grace. Let's get better, okay? Let's face our offense head on and get to something even greater. You see, as we continue this conversation, here's one thing I want you to know. The foundation for this whole conversation we're having, the foundation of our values is the belief that God is a loving Father who has your best in mind. His desire is for your best. Regardless of what I say, regardless of what we get into, I want you to come back to this point. The foundation, the very thing that we're standing on in this whole conversation is that God is a loving Father whose desire is for our best. And when it comes to discussing sex and sexuality, God's intention is not to keep you from the fun stuff. It's not like he's hiding something and he's like, oh no, they found it. It's not like he's looking down and he's going like, what in the world are they doing? You know, he designed this.